Hi, my name is Lisa and welcome to my channel, The Southern Seamstress. I want to thank everyone who watched last week's video, and if you're new to my channel, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button. In last week's video, I showed you some fabrics that I had purchased from Mood Fabrics, and in today's video, I'm going to show two garments that I've made from those fabrics so far. One of those garments is probably the most favorite of all that I've made this year, and the other one has to be the most frustrating one that I've made. I'm going to start first with the garment that I really enjoyed making, and that is the kit dress by Seamwork Patterns. Last week I showed you the blouse version, and I had liked it so much I thought it would really work out well for the linen orchid print fabric that I had purchased from Mood. This pattern comes in two size ranges, 00 to 18 and 12 to 30. Between these two size ranges, the bust goes from 32 to 60 inches, the waist 24 to 53 inches, and the hips 34 to 64 inches. So quite a wide size range there. The pattern is drafted for a C cup and for someone that is about 5'8". It calls for light to medium weight woven fabric such as linen or chambray or cotton lawn. When I first ordered this beautiful linen fabric for Mood, I was thinking about making a blouse, and so I only ordered 1.5 yards. I knew it had a large print, but when I got it in person, the print was a little larger than I had expected. So I thought it might be a little overwhelming for just a blouse, but I thought it would make a beautiful dress. So since I only had 1.5 yards, I knew it would have to be sort of a straighter dress and probably above the knee dress. I also wanted a dress that had kind of a plain front that didn't have zippers or buttons to break up the print, so it would really show off the print well. And I think this pattern does a beautiful job of that. Now the pattern is drafted for someone who's 5'8", and you can see in this drawing that they've made it to where it kind of hits below her knee. And I don't really like this length on me. I already have really short legs, and this kind of makes them look even shorter. So I usually put my dresses and skirts just a few inches above the knee or just a few inches above the ankle. So that helped me cut back some inches, and also because I'm only 5'2", I was able to shorten it another few inches. So altogether, I shortened the pattern by 6 inches. Now I was looking at this, the fabric requirements, and for a size 2, for some reason it says it would take 2 1/8 yards for a 60 inch. And I'm not sure where they're getting that, because with 1.5 yards, and this fabric was close to 60 inches, I had plenty of material. I didn't have much left over. I had just like a little bitty scrap, and the only thing I had to piece were these ties. But I did make my ties longer. Even if I had just made them like the model has, and her ties only come to about like right here, I still would have had to piece it. And because of the print, you can't really even see where I pieced the ties. They do run along the grain line, but I did connect them or join them with a diagonal seam to kind of spread out the thickness of the seam, and then it also helps hide the seams. And I really like how they looked crisscross in the back, and it really gives some shaping to this back area. And I like the longer length of the bow. It doesn't come quite this long when I'm wearing it, and I will pop up a picture of me wearing it so you can see how long it is on me. So besides shortening it by 6 inches, I also shortened the sleeves by 1 inch, just like I did with the blouse. There was a couple of details that I didn't go over the blouse that I kind of wanted to talk about today. One thing to note on this dress is that most of the seams are 5/8 inch, but around this facing and along the back edge is 3/8 inches. Now, since I'd already made this before, I wasn't really looking at the directions that much, and I had seamed this 5/8 inches, but before I clipped it, I thought I'd better check out the directions, and I saw that it was 3/8, so I just, ripped out the first seam and then redid it. And then you just clip it and press it flat, but you're supposed to top stitch 1 1/4 inches from the edge. And I found when I was top stitching the blouse that if I just went down here over and tried to go back up, and I think it's because of this linen is kind of a loose weave and soft, it was kind of pushing this fabric up this way and making a little bit of a pucker. So what I suggest, if you're having that problem, and you may not have that problem with a firmer weave or a crisper fabric, first, before top stitching, I would suggest that you mark the line that you want to top stitch. And what I did was I used my seam gauge, or I think I also used this little template edge right here, went over 1 1/2 inches and used this little gel pen. I really like these gel pens. They come in 4 different colors: black, white, red, and blue, and I had never used these before. I saw someone talk about them on a YouTube video, and so I ordered some from Amazon, and I have them linked down below if you're interested. I don't know if you can find them in the store, but they're by Madame Sew, and they're heat erasable. But what I like is they're very fine tipped, and it looks like you're just marking all over your fabric with an ink pen, but you just barely touch it with an iron and it comes completely off. And you don't have to press really hard like some of the marking pens. But anyway, so I made a blue line going down here across and up. And since when I've tried to just go all the way around, it makes this side puckery, I just put my sewing machine, and I made sure I had a long tail on my top and bottom threads. I just started right here in the middle and then went up, went across and then up, and then I pulled those threads down, straight down with just a little sewing needle. And then I did the same thing, and I tried to meet this, my first stitch. I put it just almost in the same spot, and I went across and then up, and it just made it so much easier to get a smooth finish. And then I just brought those threads down and I tied them all in a knot so they won't be coming undone. That's just a little tip on how to get this nice and flat and smooth. Also on this one, I did use the 3 basting lines for the gathering as the Seamwork pattern suggested. Last time on the blouse I just used my normal 2, but I did use 3 where you use 1 on the seam line and then 1 above and 1 below. And I think it does help make your gathers a little bit more even. So I'm really happy with this. I love this fabric. I think it's very flattering pattern, and the fabric I think is just so beautiful. I love these colors. I love orchids. I have a whole sunroom full of orchids. They're just one of my favorite flowers. And I think I'll definitely be making this dress and probably the blouse again. If I change anything, it would probably be to raise this neckline. Since it's made for a taller person, I think I want to raise this neckline about 1 inch. One other thing that I didn't talk about last time was how you do the inner yoke. They use the burrito style to help give you a clean finish on the yoke seam. So if you look inside on this seam, it's the inside of the seam is concealed, and the seam on the back on this seam, if you look underneath, it's concealed. And I really like that clean finish. And it's the burrito style, and if you're not familiar with that, I think I'd only used it once before, and that was like with a tote bag. And when I was making the blouse, I thought I did everything correctly, had it laid out, rolled everything up, put it together, and then when I got through sewing it, one seam was concealed, but the other one wasn't, so I had to pick that out. So then I just had to look closer at the directions. But once you get to that part where you do the burrito style, you're gonna basically have this. Let me see if I can find a picture. You're gonna have your back and your yokes and your fronts all together, but you're gonna lay them out flat. But then you're gonna roll the front. I just rolled it in, you know, like a 1 inch or 1 or 2 inches, just a fairly small roll. And you're going to roll it all the way up, and then you're going to roll the back all the way up. And just the main thing to remember is to really read the directions and take note of which one of the yolks is the outer yolk and which of the yolks is the inner yolk. And then just make sure to read the directions to see whether they're putting right sides together or wrong sides together. And if you do it exactly like it says, it will turn out exactly right. And you'll have a nice clean finish inside. So anyway, that's my kit dress by Seamwork Patterns. Now the second garment I made this week, and which was very frustrating, was the Laurie Pleated Tee by Named Patterns. This pattern comes in sizes US 0 to 24, which is a bust measurement of 30 to 53 inches. And I made the size 4. And I'm currently wearing it. And the pattern itself is not frustrating. You know, most t-shirts are pretty simple. This one has a little extra detail of the pleats on the front. So it's going to take a little bit more time normally than just a regular t-shirt. Why this certain t-shirt was so frustrating was the fabric that I used. This was one of the fabrics from Mood Fabric that I showed last week. It is called Pink Gray and Goldenrod Impressionist Floral, and it's a stretch rayon jersey. Now the pattern did call for a lightweight stretch fabric, and I thought this would work well because it's fairly lightweight and it's very stretchy. The problem was that neither of my machines, my regular sewing machine and my serger, neither one really liked this fabric. It's one of those fabrics that feel really soft and comfortable to the touch, but when you try to cut it out or when you try to sew it, it wants to creep and move around and crawl. And so it took extra time to cut it out because it was always kind of wanted to shift around. But then when I was sewing it, my machine it was just the tension, it just seemed to be, the stitches did not look well. They would look too tight. I even changed out my needle on my regular sewing machine to a ballpoint for lightweight knits. And when you do these pleats, you do the stitching line, it just says with a straight regular machine. Now before I get into stitching it together, I just want to give you a little tip on when you cut it out, marking these pleats. And here's what I did. So you're going to have this very long pattern piece for the front, and it has the little pleats lines marked here. There's 4 different ones, and it gives you on the bottom of where the pleat is, it's got the stitching line. So once you have this laid out and cut out, what you want to do before you take your pattern off, and actually before you lay the pattern down, I would crease all these stitching lines on your pattern piece up. So like there's the one on the bottom, you know, give it a good crease up, and then take the next one and crease it up till you have all 4 of them with a nice crease going upwards. And then what I did was, when it was laying down, I unpinned, or if you have weights, I unpinned the bottom, I folded this back. I'd also marked the top and the bottoms of the pleat areas. And then I just laid down like a ruler, or I laid this template down on the edge, and then I took my gel pen and did a line across. And then I just kept folding, you know, further up until I got to the top one. And then after I did that, I unpinned the pattern and I unfolded it, and then did the same thing going across to the other side. So that way you keep your line straight, and it should make it fairly easy to do your pleats. The depth of the pleat from the stitching line to where it's folded is 1 3/4. So what I also did was mark 1 3/4, made a line above the stitching line. And that way when I got to my machine, I folded it on the top line and then stitched it on the stitching line. So that should have made the pattern very easy. And if I'd had a different fabric, it would have been easy. But this kept crawling around and moving around. My needles didn't like it. I changed the needles on the serger. But anyway, I finally got a stitch that I thought looked fairly straight. And if you measured it, if you got down and measured, all these pleats are probably a little bit off. They're certainly not perfect. But I got the pleats done, and it seemed like that took hours just to get that first step done. And then I did the rest of it on the serger. And even when I was doing the little twin cover stitch, you know, it just seemed like I made the tension as low as possible, and it still just seemed to be really making it a tight stitch. But once I pressed it, it was okay. Now this is a size 4. I did take in the side seams slightly. This is a very oversized, you can see how wide it is when I hold my arms out. And I think on the model it comes a little bit shorter. I really wanted it just a little bit shorter, but there's not a line on the pattern for shortening or lengthening it. To make it shorter and to look right, I would have had to make all the multiple adjustments in between all these pleats, and I just didn't feel like doing that. I think I did actually make it a 1/2 inch shorter on the bottom, but if I would have taken it all off the bottom, I could have just ended actually on the last pleat, but I wasn't sure if I really liked the way that looked. But I don't think it's, too long to wear, and I could tuck it up and make it look shorter. But I do like the way the pattern looks. Well, if I make it again, I will definitely not use a creepy crawly knit fabric. I think if I use something more like Spoonflower's Modern Jersey, that it's got a little bit more, it's still very drapey, but it's just not crawly. It's got more stability, I guess you'd say. So I think something like that, you wouldn't have any problems with the pattern. Now I was worried a little bit about the neckline because this is so stretchy. When I kind of pinned the full length of the band on here, it just didn't look like, it looked like it was going to be baggy. When you put your band up to your shirt and they're almost the same size, you know that there's going to be a problem with that. So I took an inch off this band, and it was saying if your fabric was really drapey and didn't have good recovery, that you should use a different fabric for your neckband. Well, I really wanted the neckband to look the same as the shirt, and this is really drapey, so I was a little concerned. But I think this has excellent recovery because it's very stretchy, but it stretches right back. So I think because the recovery is really good, that I'm hoping after I washed it a few times, it's still going to look good. But I do still love the look of this fabric, this print. It's got a lot of my favorite colors. I love pinks, I love grays, I love purples, and it's just got all those in it. So I still love the print, but I would pick something different to make this certain shirt out of. Now I had enough fabric left over from this to make at least a sleeveless top, but I think I'm going to give it a rest and wait till next spring or summer before I tackle working with this fabric again. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about those two patterns. And if you have any questions, just please put those down in the comments. If you watched my last couple of videos, I had talked about another piece of fabric I had gotten from Spoonflower Fabrics, which was this really cute bird design. And I had mentioned last week that I had written to the designer and asked her if she would make a solid color design possible for me to order of this pinky, peachy pink color. And she had, and so I got that fabric in this week. And I plan to make another Tarifa tee from French Navy because I really like the one I made earlier this year. But this time I think I'm going to, if I have enough fabric, I'm going to make a long sleeve version so that I can, you know, have it to wear this fall and this winter. Now I knew I wouldn't need too much of this peachy pink, so what I did was I only ordered a half of a yard. So I used one of Spoonflower's templates, 1 yard templates, and on the other half I got this really beautiful butterfly print that I really love. Now these were from two different designers, but these colors I think just match really well. So I've got a half a yard of the butterflies, so I will be making, I'm not sure if it's going to be a t-shirt or a tank top, but some top that uses both of these. And I may try to get that done also before the weather gets too cool to wear a short sleeve or a tank top. So this week I'll be making that Tarifa tee, and I'll be able to show it to you in my next video. I also want to show you in the next video some really beautiful fabrics that I've got from Guthrie and Ghani, and talk about maybe what patterns I plan to use with those. They're mostly warm weather, I guess, fabrics. A couple will work for this fall. This week I also bought several patterns from the Itch to Stitch website, and I plan to use maybe 1 or 2 of those with those fabrics. So I'll also be sharing those patterns with you and what fabrics I might be making with those. I do plan to make at least a couple of different jackets this fall, and I'd like one of them to be made out of maybe some soft corduroy, like a printed corduroy. And I haven't searched too much online for that, so I'm still shopping for that. But it looked like several sellers on Etsy had some really cute corduroy prints. If you have any recommendations for an online fabric store that might have some cute printed corduroy, I would love for you to put that in the comments, and then I can go check that out. Well, that wraps it up for this week's video. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed the video, I would love for you to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.